questions for our speakers, please feel free to add them in the chat for our moderators to ask. And now, without any further delay, I'll pass it over to Dia to introduce our speaker and begin the conversation.
All right, thank you, Vinny. Welcome to today's session. So I'm speaking to Devki and Lucas. So Devki and Lucas, if you guys would like to introduce yourselves, tell us what field you're studying in or what you studied in, and something you enjoy doing in your free time. So starting off with Lucas.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thanks for having me here today, guys. My name is Lucas Clark. I studied history and political science. So I did a Bachelor of Arts degree at the University of Calgary. And now I'm doing my after degree in secondary education with a major in social studies and English. In my free time, basically just kind of going for runs, reading about history books, watching Sons of Anarchy on Netflix right now. So that's kind of the show I'm making my way through. So pretty much it.
And Devki.
Hi, I'm Devki. I'm a first year going into second year in my BFA for film production at York University. What I like to do in my free time, obviously watching movies. That's basically what I want to do for the rest of my life. And, hanging out with friends and stuff like that.
All right, that's great. So let's get into it. My first question for you guys is, how did you know you wanted to pursue something in this field? Starting off with Devki this time.
Okay, so I've always been into movies, like from a young age. My dad's a film fanatic. He's also made a couple individual projects, so I've always had like his presence in my life. So yeah, from a young age, always watching the Oscars, stuff like that, like big blockbuster movies, Oscar-nominated films, and I always wanted to pursue something in that direction. I actually wanted to do med school first, and then I realized that, doing med school and then doing film would be a bit much. And also, like, I don't want to take 10 plus years to get into what I really want to do. It's kind of like diverted off that plan. And yeah, so now I'm studying film production. I want to direct as a career, but I'm pretty much open to like working in the industry in any way possible until I can do that.
That's very interesting. And Lucas?
Yeah, for me, I never really decided I wanted to be a teacher until actually the later stages of grade 12. I was really into like working out and sports performance in grade 12. So I originally wanted to be a gym teacher. As I started applying to university, I was always kind of a history nerd growing up. So I kind of thought maybe teaching social would be a bit more interesting for me long term. And I just decided to go with that and applied for history and never looked back.
That's great. So you two have like different, like, I guess, outlooks on this. So Devki always wanted to do film, and she kind of knew from the start she wanted to do something like that. And Lucas, you kind of realized it in grade 12.
Yep.
Interesting. Nice. My second question here for you guys is, do you feel that there's a stigma when it comes to choosing a field to study in, such as humanities, rather than studying in STEM? Now, I feel like this might be more directed to Devki, as you mentioned, she was going to do something in medical, but switch over to film.
Yeah, definitely the arts and humanities in general, fine arts, all of that. There's a huge stigma that people who go into that kind of field are academically inept or like not, as like focused on like things that are more considered more intelligent. But like along with creativity is that side of things. Like you do have to be smart per se and like to create. And even in the humanities, like I know the arts and humanities are a bit different. Like humanities is more like, things around you, like in a social setting, whereas the arts is more creative. But I find that in terms of when people talk about it, this like STEM and sciences are normally considered like a more like advanced form of education or like direction to go into, but that's really not the case. Like in any field that you go into, you'll meet like-minded individuals that are all equally intelligent and they're stronger suited for certain things. But yeah, like definitely there's a huge stigma about, it's not as academically like pushing, or like it's not for people who have like some form of intelligence. Like it's for all like-minded individuals.
Yeah, for sure. Lucas, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like when I first started studying history, and I did then I added the political science major afterwards. People would always be like, they would kind of put it down, I guess, to a certain extent, because it wasn't like, oh, like, what are you going to do with that? But it's actually either stream is what you take to go to law school. And if you tell people that you want to be a lawyer, then they understand what you're doing, but like they don't really understand the process of how it goes. So law or teaching is generally what you go into after taking these degrees. But definitely, like, especially in my own family, everyone else that in my family is they work out at site somewhere as like operators or mechanics. So it's definitely a bit of a change from the family norm to go into this. So there's definitely a lot of questions about that for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you guys cleared this up because here in Fort McMurray, this is like a working city. Most people would work in the site or like engineering, right? So I'm glad you guys cleared that up. Another question I have is, in your high school life, did you guys take any extracurriculars that led you to your decision in pursuing this field? Lucas?
By extracurriculars, I'm gonna assume you mean sports. I didn't attend any clubs or anything in high school. So honestly, I don't remember there being that many at Westwood that I can remember. I could have just been unaware of them. But I did play football for the Trojans, and I did play house league hockey here in town. And going into teaching, I definitely wanted to be able to coach one day. So having the lifestyle where you can finish your workday around 4:30, 5 o'clock every day and be consistent, but you can actually coach all the time is definitely one of the reasons why I chose this career.
So an athlete we have here. Nice. All right, Debki.
If you say so.
I took drama and choir the last 2 years of high school. I've always been into like leadership things, so like student council, MACOY, obviously for 3 years, like stuff like that. So it's all kind of molded me, I guess, to do what I want to do because directing is all about leadership, and then also like the art side, drama and acting and stuff like that. So I've always had that kind of exposure.
Very nice. We also have a past McCoy member here. That's very nice. So as a teaching assistant, or right?
Sorry, is that for me? You froze up on my screen. I didn't hear what you said.
But no worries. You're like a teaching assistant now. You finished school, right?
No, I have one more year left. So I finished the first year of my after degree, so I have 1 year left. Yeah.
All right. No. I was gonna ask, like, where do you guys see yourself in 10 years, or in another next 5 or 10 years? So Debki's like, yeah.
Personally, hopefully, working in the industry on a higher level, possibly directing things or like co-directing things. Probably not in Alberta for sure. Just based on like where the industry is located in Canada, but yeah.
All right. So if not in Alberta, where do you want to be, or where do you see yourself being?
If in Canada, probably Toronto or Vancouver, and if somehow I manage to get to America for some reason, then probably LA or NYC, but really just depends. Like, I'm not picky.
You want me to go same thing?
Where do you see yourself?
In 5-10 years, I would say I definitely see myself pursuing a master's degree in either history or education, either still teaching social or being a vice principal or principal somewhere is where I would like to be.
Chat.
Kind of cutting in and out. I'm not too sure if it's just me. But...
Yeah, I'm freezing up too.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, now I can. Yeah.
All right. So my next question is, what's an average day in your life? And we can start off with Lucas.
Yeah. So during my arts degree, I would say Monday through Friday, there would be 2 different schedules. On Monday, you'd have 50-minute classes, and on Tuesday, Thursday, it'd be an hour and 15. So I would usually get up, go to the university about a half an hour before my thing would start, about 9 a.m. And then I grab a coffee. I'd have a couple lectures. And then the biggest difference from high school to university is that there's never any like class time given for assignments. Like at the beginning of the semester, you're given like 2 or 3 big projects per class on average, and then they're assigned to you, and then you kind of go to the lectures to kind of spark ideas for what you might want to write about, and then you go from there. So throughout the week, you might only be in class an hour or 2 a day. So then it's up to you to manage your own time well and actually work on your stuff.
So, jumping into another question is, you mentioned how that's a big jump. Is this something you kind of sort of?
Sorry, I only heard the big jump. I didn't hear anything else.
I just said that this is a big jump from.
Yeah, the jump from high school to university is it my turn or Dev Key? Sorry, I didn't know.
I wanted to continue from what you're saying,
Yeah.
and then we can go into what Dev was saying after.
Sure, yeah. So I would say the biggest change for me was like in English and social in high school, there's a lot of curricular knowledge that they just expect you to know. And once you actually get into university, it becomes explicitly about your writing ability and your actual ability to create legitimate arguments based on primary evidence, which sounds like an easy task, but once you actually get into it, it can be very difficult. Like I always say, I finished English 30-1 with a 95. And then my first ever history paper, I submitted it, thought I did so well, and I got a 52% on it. So it was definitely a huge, like, what just happened? So I spent a lot of time just sitting down with profs during their office hours, just trying to get any sort of advice that I could. But once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. I definitely improved year after year, but it definitely becomes a lot more about your actual writing ability and what you're actually able to communicate.
All right. And Dev Key, what would you say is an average day for you?
Okay, so I only did my first year and it was all online. So I've been in Fort Mac the whole year, haven't even gone on campus yet. But for me, so yeah, kind of like Lucas, it was kind of, different every day. You get to build your own schedule. So that was nice. Like you can kind of fit it to, oh, if I'm a morning person, I want my classes in the morning, or vice versa if you're an afternoon person, when you're most productive. I thought I could be a morning person until, the time difference. So a 9:30 class over there is 7:30 here. And so it's like kind of hard to wake up that early. And sometimes you don't have a choice. Like I had a lecture that was 3 hours long, from 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And that was the only time slot. Like there was no other lecture available. But like besides the time difference, in terms of just like university in general, yeah, it's very up to you to get things done. You get your syllabus for each class at the beginning of the year. For anyone going into uni next year, I would recommend creating a spreadsheet with all your due dates, all your for each class, and like do it by date. If you want to know how to do that, literally just message me. I think I know most of you. I can walk you through. It's very easy and it's really helpful. Like you can check it off when you're done. But yeah, you really have to set aside the time to be on top of your work. And considering some of you might still have to do online classes next year, just based on how the pandemic is going, a lot of classes aren't live. So once again, you're teaching yourself. So it's your responsibility to go to, office hours with your prof, or like setting aside a time to do your readings and doing your writing assignments and everything like that.
All right. So leading to our next question is, compared to like STEM majors, it seems that you guys would be doing a lot of writing. Do you ever feel that writing sometimes like ends up being really exhausting or tiring? Do we want to start with Lucas?
I'm going to say yes, because like as you progress, if you guys do choose to go into some sort of like English or history, I would say would be the most dominant like writing majors. The way it goes is that in your first year of history, in like the lower level classes, you might have 2 essays throughout the semester, which are about 1,000 words. And 1,000 words is around probably what you would do as like your standard diploma grade 12 essay. So it's kind of the same layout in that regard. But in like your final seminar course toward the end of your degree, which is like your most difficult courses, you do. I did a 15-minute presentation for one assignment in front of the whole class, and then the next assignment was a 5,000-word paper. So that's when you get into like it definitely becomes very challenging, because not only is it writing those 5,000 words, it's editing it over and over and over, moving pieces around. So you might spend, they say you should spend an hour on for every 100 words on average. So you take, that's just like kind of the rule of thumb. So that's 50 hours spent on one paper for one course. And by the time you need about 10 to 15 sources, and then for secondary, and then you need some primary sources. By the time you get through all those books and you get to the library and you get them out, it does take a long time. So the process of writing is definitely very difficult to learn. But like now, if I had to do that, I'd feel a lot more comfortable doing so, because you just learn how to do it. And it might sound really scary, but once you get from year 1 to 4 and you get in the groove, it is still exhausting, but you get used to it.
I cannot imagine I cannot imagine myself like writing 5,000 words and even more just for an English paper. I'd be so overwhelmed. Passing it on to Devki.
Yeah, the writing, it's a bit insane. I kind of get it a bit easier than probably Lucas did, just because I'm a fine art student. So the like ending of my degree is more hands-on, because I'm a production, so like making things like physically. But yeah, definitely the first 1 to 2 years you're doing a lot of general education courses and like film studies courses, and it's all writing. Like I only had one exam that was not a written exam, and just to give you like an idea of like how long those written exams are, one was 24 pages single spaced written, and I wrote that in 8 hours on one day. So it's a lot of writing, and I do not recommend it if you are not confident in your writing or like don't have the motivation to do it, because like as Lucas touched on it earlier, they mark differently than they do in high school. In high school, it's a lot more clear, in my opinion, what the expectations are. It's like find evidence, back it up. Whereas in a university setting, you're expected to critically analyze the question or the topic being like given to you. And like oftentimes like in like higher courses, you're creating a thesis and you're basically proving something that isn't like available to you to research on. You're creating research on your own. So yeah, a lot of writing, but yeah, like you do get used to it. Like I can write a whole paper that's maybe like 2,000 words in like 3 hours now, because I'm just so used to it after doing it so many times this year. But yeah, definitely not for everyone. If you don't like writing, you would definitely not enjoy being in an arts or humanities major for sure.
That makes sense. Adding on to that, how would you motivate yourself to keep writing so much? And this time, let's start with Devki.
Motivation. For me, really, it was the fact that if you hand it in late or you don't hand it in, it's a 0. And that like each paper is worth 15 to 25% of your grade. I don't know if it's like that every year, if it's just because it was like remote this year and they didn't want to give so many assignments, but everything's so heavily weighted, like you have no choice but to give it your all and to like get the mark you want, because like you don't want at the end of the day to get like a GPA that you could have done better in, but you were just like not pushing yourself to be as good as you could be.
And Lucas?
Yeah, like Devki said, I would say the deadline, definitely. But no, I really enjoyed university, and I really enjoyed writing these history papers, even though it was a long, difficult process. a lot of the courses I took, I wrote about like American, Canadian history and like war history. And I've always enjoyed that stuff. So for me, it's like once I had a research question that I was interested in, I could sit down and write notes for hours and it never bothered me. Like my favorite moment would be I would like at my old house, my mom had a nail salon and she had a little desk, and I would turn the light off and turn the lamp on so it was just my area. And I would just go for hours. I really enjoyed it. So I didn't really need a whole lot of motivation other than that.
That's great. The do something that you really enjoy is all that you need. Um, sorry. Was there any moment in your degree that you wanted to change your major? Was there any time you felt like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should switch to something else? Debki?
Definitely like as a joke. Like I would never in 100 years be like, I want to change my major from film. Like I'm very privileged to even be able to pursue what I am doing. So definitely as a joke, and those like really you're in the trench, like trying to write out your essays and your homework. I was like, damn, I want to quit school. But like, no, like if you like as you said, if you really love something, you will push through and you will be fine. Don't worry about it.
And Lucas?
I wouldn't say I wanted to switch ever, but I kind of wish that you were able to branch out more because I wish I took more psychology courses. But when you're in history and political science and you're in an arts degree, it's kind of under the assumption that if you do any further education after, it's going to be within those disciplines. Whereas even though I wanted to be a teacher, I they don't look at it as like you're going to eventually do this, so we'll allow you to do it. It's kind of like you just do history and political science if that's what you're in. So I do kind of wish there was more options, but and I do understand why people do switch out because when you put all those hours into a paper and you don't get the grade you want, it can be very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys participate in? Oh, I'm sorry. Was someone speaking?
Oh no.
Okay. Did you guys participate in any extracurriculars during university? If so, what were they? And to Lucas?
Well, yeah, I found it very difficult to try and get into extracurriculars, mainly because I lived 45 minutes away from the university. I lived in Airdrie, and I would drive into U of C every day, so it's about a 30 to 40-minute drive. So so the way it would work, like I'd have classes that would end at 12 o'clock some days. Like it would be noon and I'd be done. And then your extracurricular things, they're not until 8 p.m. and 7 p.m. So if I actually wanted to drive back in, and then by the time it's over, it's almost 11, then you got to drive back out to Airdrie. So for me, there's definitely no shortage of options. Like at U of C, for example, there's they do have a name for it when it's not in COVID, obviously, but they have in the main foyer, they have like lines, like this is kind of like a trade show where they all set up booths and they have their clubs on display and you can just sign up for anything. Like there was a history students association and a political science students association. So you can sign up and it's mainly like trivia nights and stuff like that. Like there's political parties. There's the game Quidditch. I think it's on Harry Potter. Like there was a club that had that, and they just play that on the weekends. So there's definitely so many you can do, but I didn't really participate because I just live so far away.
And Debki?
I have been on like student leadership groups, like the Film Students Association. I was like the first year rep this year. I'm elected to be the director of promotions next year. I'm also the like VP of finance for the Creative Arts Students Association next year. So there's like a lot of clubs like that. So and I've always been into leadership, so I obviously was very compelled to do that kind of stuff. Hopefully next year, at least my third year, I want to get into like more like sports stuff because I played volleyball throughout high school, so I kind of miss like the whole team aspect of things. I'm looking into like the rowing team. That seems kind of cool. There's like a Chinese rowboat team or something, and they're very nice. So maybe like stuff like that. But yeah, in terms of like being online, the things I've been doing are more so like running events for my fellow peers in my program, and like facilitating things that are more addressed to like creative art students and film students. But hopefully I can branch out to, other disciplines next year or the year after when things are a bit better.
I see. So you seem pretty busy because you do a lot of different things at the moment. So how would you say, like, how many hours of sleep do you get on average? And starting with Jessica.
Kind of depends on the day, really. Depends on the due dates, Sometimes I think once or twice I stayed up until 7 a.m. just to finish an assignment because everything gets piled up at the same time. I literally do not have the time to give that particular assignment the attention it needs until like it's due. But yeah, it really depends. I think just being at home though, I had like the luxury of, like family at home. I didn't have to cook, for myself and like even move from my bedroom for class. So I did probably get more sleep than I should have. And sometimes, you just get lazy and you sleep in and you kind of just have to push yourself later. So some days 3 hours, some days, a full 9. It just depends on your schedule for the week.
All right. And Lucas?
Yeah, I would say it depends how much you procrastinate. Definitely. Like there would be some days that, because usually your assignments are due at midnight. That's usually kind of how it goes, like 11:59 p.m. But the odd time you'll have a paper that you need to submit in class to the professor. I feel like that's probably going to completely go away now that we've been online. But there was one day I remember I went to sleep at 12 o'clock and I woke up at 4 in the morning and worked until 1 p.m. on a paper that was due at 2. So like it just, but then obviously the nights before that I was getting my full 8 or 9 because I was just procrastinating. But I didn't find sleep that big of an issue other than that.
All right. I feel like with a lot of university students, sleep is like one of the like not a priority at all. Everyone cares about like your schoolwork and like your extracurriculars, but like forget about sleep. Do you have any tips to better adapt to university life? And starting with Lucas.
I would just say it's just organization and time management. It sounds like a broken record, but honestly, I didn't really do a whole lot of it until I was online. But every semester when it starts, when I get the syllabus, like Devki said, I write it on a notebook, not a spreadsheet. I have one page where I do all my major assignment due dates, and then so that'll be for the whole semester. And then I have a different book that I write out my weekly schedules. Because you're gonna have a lot of courses where you have like little things to do during the week. So then on Sunday, I'll sit down for a half an hour, look through all my courses again, write down everything I have to do for that week, and then you can just cross it off as you go. Because if you're always thinking like, what am I have to do or what do I need to do, it also just causes unnecessary stress for you. Like once you actually sit down and you can see everything you have to do, you're like, okay, well if I do this, this, and this, I can have Thursday and Friday off. So you can definitely learn. You gotta negotiate with yourself, with your future self, definitely. But definitely time management is crucial.
No, definitely. I'm in grade 9 and I feel like I have the worst time management skills, but it's something I need to work on for university. And
Just
Devki,
be a good
would you like to add
teleactive.
anything?
Yeah, I would the same thing Lucas said. I'd be kind of a hypocrite to like be like, yeah, I have great time management and I don't procrastinate because I have always done that even throughout high school. Definitely not as much now. University is a lot more work on your own time, so you kind of can't, procrastinate, or you can, but only to a certain extent because you only have so much time to work on things. Everything has a deadline, and you can't like go over the deadline unless you have some prior conversation with your prof. In terms of like a tip to get used to it, someone told me this before I went into uni. It was just like you just get used to it on its own. Like I don't even know how I could offer any advice on it. Like I personally had a rough time getting used to like the whole online thing, and then on top of that, like university, it was very difficult. But like after you get through it, you get used to it. Like the only thing I could say is like push through, I guess. Like after you get through it once, it's kind of like it's just your new routine. Just like high school was hard at the beginning and then you got used to it. It's the same thing. It's just a different setting.
Can I just add something to that, actually?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it might sound counterproductive, but I've been doing this more lately and I found it's helped a lot. Actively schedule out the time you want to have off. And what I mean by that is when you're in university, even me right now, I have a spring course that I'm doing right now, and I've got due dates throughout May and June, and it can always be on your mind. But I made a rule that I do not work on Friday nights and on Saturdays, and I do work on Sunday through Friday at 5 o'clock. So make sure you have some time that you never do work so you can actually check out. So I feel like all the talk about mental health and well-being and stuff, the constant stress of assignment stuff, just making some time for yourself and actually sticking to it, I think helps a lot.
Yeah, no, I feel like people now don't talk so much about like self-care and taking care of yourself and not pushing yourself to the point where you're gonna absolutely explode of work and overwhelming. So no, that's good to hear. Um, I think we've reached our time. It's 3:15. But thank you guys for attending today and answering all these questions. You both were amazing and very inspiring. I'll definitely take some of your advice as I'm going through my high school career and into university after. So thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Nate.
So thank you, Dia, Lucas, and Devki. And with that saying, that concludes our topics for today. And also thank you again for everyone. Thank you again for participating, and we hope you enjoyed and had something to take away from this series. And everyone, please stay tuned for all MACOY news at rmwb.ca/MACOY. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Lucas. Thanks, Devki. It was good seeing you guys again.
Yeah, it's nice seeing you guys again, too. Good luck with your English as the rest.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, man.